This is the Season Long Podcast in support of the YouTube channel SeasonLongBaller. Happy to have you with us. Hope you had a wonderful weekend and are looking forward to a wonderful week. Welcome to Season Long Podcast number 46, and we will cover last week, as you can see here, where we had 4 games with the Spurs, the Clippers, the Heat, and the Suns. And this is our rematch with the Suns, this time in DC. If you may recall, we did play the Suns earlier this season, and that was probably the game of the year where we went into overtime against the Suns. But what we will be focusing on, even though we went 3-1 this week, we're going to focus on that one. And that was the loss to the Miami Heat, 70-62. This is our second loss to the Heat, this time happening at home. We lost to Miami earlier in Miami, and you can see right off it's the rebounding that killed us, and that's pretty much what we kind of expected after they acquired Clint Capella. But there was one difference to what they did with Capella that surprised me a little bit. But looking at some of the overall stats here, you see the Heat didn't exactly light us up. They shot 43% from the field, but we only shot 38% and then shot 30% from deep, while the Heat were slightly better, shooting 32%, but they had more free throws than we did, going 11 out of 14, and the main difference on the glass. They killed us on the boards. Again, something that we kind of expected. So, starting off with Bam Adebayo, he led the team with in rebounds with 12, and he was 7 out of 10 from the field. You'll notice that Tyler Hero was only 3 out of 10, Jason Richardson 3 out of 12, and then look at Jimmy Butler. Only shot the ball 3 times, 2 out of 3, but overall they were 26 out of 60, and of course we only scored 6 points in the first quarter. Now, Adebayo had 12 rebounds and 16 points, but Clint Capella had only 3 points, but notice the 9 rebounds, almost going for double rebounds himself, and he was only 1 out of 3 from the field. But here was the surprise. I expected after they made the deal for Duncan Robinson, they sent Duncan Robinson to Atlanta and Capella came to the Heat. I was expecting Capella to come off the bench and relieve Adebayo. Instead, they bumped Martin to the bench and started Capella at the 4. So you had Adebayo and Capella starting. That's a pretty big lineup comparatively for us with the Wizards, because Capella has always killed us on the glass and Adebayo is Adebayo. So we had a problem on the glass for sure, and as you see, both of them, really Capella almost got double-digit rebounds. Adebayo had 12 of them, and going forward, we do have 2 more matchups with the Miami Heat since they are a Southeast Division rival. This is probably going to be a problem. Now, we didn't counter by putting Daniel Gafford in at the 4 and maybe moving Kuzma down to the 3 and Avdia to the bench. But if we see the Heat in the playoffs, maybe that's a move if we keep getting killed on the glass. However, we're going to have to shoot better than we did in this game. You'll notice Jordan Poole was only 3 out of 8. I was only 10 out of 21 and 6 out of 13 from deep, so that's not horrible. But I'm the only one that was in double digits. Gafford 3 out of 5, so he's pretty good. But you'll notice that Şengün was only 1 out of 8, and of course that's the big man we've acquired here recently, the former Houston Rockets center. You'll notice also that DeLon Wright and Gallinari were 0 for 7 combined. And then finally, Kuzma was only 2 out of 7. So the main scorers for the Wizards outside of Summerz, Poole, Kuzma, Şengün, really did not have a good game, going 3 out of 8, 2 out of 7, and 1 out of 8, respectively. And then 2 guys that kind of contribute on the fringes, Wright and Gallinari, went 0 for 7. So there you go, and nobody's hitting points, and the Wizards lost to the Heat 70-62 and got off to a horrible start in that game. Yeah, we scored 6 points in the quarter, but it was a long time before we even got off of 0 in that game. And we'll be facing the Heat again, as I mentioned, twice more. And the Heat right now are the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. So if that holds and we keep winning games and we stay at the 1 seed, we wouldn't see the Heat until the Eastern Conference Finals. But that's a ways away. It's still cold outside, so we haven't got to that point yet. Taking a really quick look at the award races. Jaymont Summerz, our player built, the 6'5" point guard out of William and Mary, is still the presumptive leader right now for most valuable player. You see Luka Doncic is second in the voting, and actually we will be facing Luka and the Mavs again here soon next Monday in Dallas. And if you may recall, they slaughtered us in D.C. back in mid-November, and in that game, Daniel Gafford actually got injured and was out for a little bit, but we will be facing them again next week. So it'll be the two presumptive MVP candidates, 1 versus 2, Summerz versus Doncic, and that will be next week. Your Rookie of the Year, Wembanyama, he is leading right now. Brandon Miller is second. Chet Holmgren, who, as I've mentioned a few times, finished third last season in our voting behind Summerz and behind the real win, Apollo Banchero. Holmgren was third because he wasn't injured in our simulation last season. But right now, it is Wemby, number 1, and Brandon Miller, small forward from the Hornets, at the number 2 slot. Sixth man of the year, Chris Paul, injured in real life, but not injured in our simulation. So he is still holding down the number 1 slot right now. And Giannis Antetokounmpo is the defensive player of the year right now. Mitchell Robinson, the center from the Knicks, who another difference in our league. Robinson is not injured in our league, but of course he is out for the season, or maybe towards the really late season they're talking about. Maybe he'll be able to come back, but he is out for the Knicks in real life. But in our simulation, he is playing, and right now he is the runner-up for defensive player of the year behind Greek Freak. So we'll see if that gap closes any. The Kia clutch player, we didn't have that last season on NBA 2K23. Jason Tatum is leading that in the number 1 position. And interestingly, his teammate Jaylen Brown is number 2. So how do you like that? 2 Celtics leading leading that particular category. Now, notice February 8th is highlighted here. That is the trade deadline. So that is coming up later this week on Thursday, so we will keep our eyes peeled for that one, and we will be facing the Cavaliers on the 7th on Wednesday. But just wanted to mention a couple of deals that we did reject before we got to the as we head closer to the deadline. This one, I'm not sure what the Lakers thought we were going to do. I mean, look, a guy that plays the point guard is a 73. Lewis is a 70 at the small forward for Şengün, who's an 83, who we just acquired. I wonder, is this even a legal deal since we just got Şengün? I guess it is, since it's here. But why would we make this deal? There's not even a draft pick attached to this one. So yeah, definitely a decline on that one. But that's not the only offer we received. Our rivals right now, the Miami Heat, also stepped up and wanted to offer us a deal. Now this one's a little bit different, is a little bit better. Clint Capella, who, I mean, you could say is a wizard killer. At least they were offering him to us. However, we're not giving up Kyle Kuzma. Kuzma is one of the better scorers on our team. You're taking away a guy who can actually shoot, can score pretty much, and we need that. Someone else has to score outside of us. So we rejected this deal as well, even though I would like Capella, but we don't need Capella, Şengün, and Gafford. That's a little bit much, but I guess you could make the argument that it would weaken the Heat too, but I don't know. That makes the Heat more versatile if you give them Kuzma. Regardless, we rejected this deal. So taking a look at some of the deals that have affected us throughout the season in our simulation, starting off with, Clint Capella and the Duncan Robinson deal. Capella going from the Hawks to the Heat, and Robinson going from the Heat to the Hawks. I'm still kind of flabbergasted by this deal. I don't know why the Hawks would make this deal, since Capella always was killing us on the glass, and you made yourselves smaller, basically, and us, a little bit easier for us to handle the Hawks, who have been my nemesis since we've been playing here on Season Long Baller. Another deal, I guess the Hawks realized, oops, we shouldn't have traded Capella, so they go out and get Nurkic from the Suns and trade DeAndre Hunter and Fernando. Again, I'm not sure. Nurkic is a good player. He's a little bit older now, but a good player. He's been injured some. But in our simulation, Capella is the guy that kills us, not Nurkic. Although, to be fair, we haven't played the Hawks since this particular deal. Now, we have played the Hawks since Capella was traded, but not this particular deal. So maybe I shouldn't say anything. Maybe Nurkic gets there and kills us on the glass like Capella did. But, Capella was catching lobs from Trae Young. We'll see how this plays out. But this is, I don't know, maybe the Hawks, like I said, realized that they had made a mistake in the deal. Now, another deal that we saw, PJ Tucker in real life has not been getting a lot of time with the Clippers, and there's been talk of him moving, of course. But here, Dennis Schroeder went to the Clippers and PJ Tucker to the Raptors. And we saw that, and we saw that in the game that we were playing against the Clippers. Again, pretty interesting that Schroeder for Tucker. I'm not really sure why would the Clippers make that deal. You've got Westbrook and Harden running the point. And you got Bones Highland, too, coming off the bench. I mean, even deeper on the bench. Would Schroeder really help in this particular case? Would he even get a lot of time? But regardless, Tucker wasn't playing for the Clippers in real life. So maybe, you're just trying to get something? I don't know. But that's, again, another deal that has happened. Here, this is an interesting trade. Terry Rozier III traded from the Jazz traded from the Trailblazers to the Jazz, and you're thinking, wait a minute, Rozier III was playing for the Hornets. Yeah, that's true, but he was traded earlier in January, right at the turn of the new year. He was traded by the Hornets to the Trailblazers for Jeremy Grant. And Rozier and Edmond Sumner, who was actually traded in our simulation last season on NBA 2K23, they go to the Blazers. Now, this is an interesting deal, I think, from the Hornets' point of view. I still think they need the Rozier scoring. As you see in real life, the Miami Heat felt they needed some of that scoring. But Jeremy Grant now, I would assume, pencils in at the 4 because we haven't seen the Hornets since this deal was made. So I would assume Grant pencils in at the 4, Miller's at the 3, you still got Melo at the 1. So maybe that's a more well-rounded lineup and you've got Mark Williams in the middle? Maybe? I don't know. We haven't seen the Hornets, of course, since this deal, so that would be interesting to play them with Jeremy Grant as opposed to Rozier III. So finally, taking a look at the All-Star team. I know you've been waiting for this, and here you are, your All-Star teams. Summerz and Joker were your leading vote getters in the respective conferences, and your starters for the East, it's Summerz, Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard of the Bucks, Joel Embiid of the Sixers, and Jason Tatum. So that is your 5 starters for the East. Out West, it's Joker, Curry, Doncic, Durant, and LeBron James. So this is, I think, is going to be fun on All-Star Weekend. And you can see the reserves there with Butler, Mitchell, Young, Halliburton, Adebayo, DeRozan, and Middleton for the Eastern Conference. And then out West, it's Booker, Shea, Anthony Davis, Zion Williamson, James Harden, Sabonis, and Cat. I think it'll be a lot of fun as we are getting closer to All-Star Weekend, and Jaymont Summerz will be participating in the three-point contest, and here you finally get a look at the rosters. Now, coming up next week, as we've already mentioned, we have got the trade deadline coming up on the 8th. We'll see if we get offered any more deals or really I should say any more junk deals. But we will be playing, don't have a game today. On Wednesday, we will be facing the Cleveland Cavaliers at home. Then the trade deadline happens, and then we travel to Boston to take on the Celtics. You remember what happened last time we played the Celtics. I will put that in the description. And let's just say we had a lot of fun that day playing the Celtics. It's a day I would love to be able to repeat that day all the time. Don't think that's going to happen again in the Garden, but we'll see. So we'll be facing the Celtics. And again, this is the first time we have faced the Celtics and our old friend Kristaps Porzingis, who was the all-star for the Wizards in our simulation last season. Summerz was in the Rising Stars game, was not an all-star, but will be this time. This will be the first time we've played them since the third game of the season on the day before Halloween. And yeah. Yeah, really nice memories. You have to check that game out. And then after that, we will be playing the Philadelphia 76ers at home on Saturday. And nothing really compares to that Boston game. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Season Long Podcast, number 46. Thank you for listening. Again, we will be facing the Cleveland Cavaliers on Wednesday. Hope to see you there. Have a wonderful rest of your day. That's it for Season Long Baller.